12 civilians were killed in Gaza on Wednesday during Israeli airstrikes. Nicolás Maduro accepts his nomination as the sole presidential candidate for the Great Simón Bolívar Patriotic Bowl. And in Cuba, the third Patria International Symposium concluded this Wednesday. Hello and welcome to From the South. I'm Alejandra Garcia from teleSUR Studios in Havana, Cuba. We begin with the news. Israeli occupation forces have begun a large-scale incursion into Noor Shams refugee camp in the occupied West Bank province of Tulkarm on Wednesday, imposing a tight siege on it. Wafa correspondent reported that as many as 50 Israeli military vehicles raided the Noor Shams refugee camp, declaring it a closed military zone, prohibiting entry and exit of Palestinian citizens into and out of the camp. Additionally, Israeli forces raided several homes in Jabal al-Salehen neighborhood of the camp. Meantime, Israeli drones targeted a site within the al-Mashija neighborhood of the camp, the nature of which remains unknown due to the tight siege amidst pleas for help and ambulance access, as several injuries were reported. 12 civilians, including at least two children, were killed on Wednesday in Israeli airstrikes that targeted residential homes in different areas in the northern and southern regions of the Gaza Strip. According to sources, Israeli warplanes bombed the Isa family home east of Rafah city in the southern Gaza Strip, killing 6 civilians and causing injuries to several others. An Israeli strike also targeted a house belonging to the Habush family west of Gaza City, resulting in the killing of a mother and her son. Israeli military drones also targeted a group of civilians near the Hamouda crossing east of Jabaliya in the northern Gaza Strip, killing 3 civilians and injuring 10 others. In Palestine, the Israeli occupation army disconnected the artificial ventilators of some patients in Al-Shifa medical complex in what would be the third day of the siege of the hospital. The occupation drones and artillery are targeting everything that moves in the area of the complex, while they keep about 200 people under arrest, including members of the medical staff, after last Tuesday's attack in which 50 Palestinians were executed in the hospital center, including several children. The Gaza Health Ministry denounced that Israel justifies the assault with the argument that Hamas fighters are still in the hospital center. Saudi Arabia's King Salman Humanitarian Aid and Relief Center, Kresliev, is providing $40 million in support of the UNRWA's humanitarian relief efforts in the Gaza Strip. Abdullah Al-Rabeha, Supervisor General of Kresliev, and UNRWA Commissioner General Philippe Lazzarini signed an agreement on Wednesday confirming this generous support to the agency. The funding will provide food for more than 250,000 people and tents for 20,000 families. Since the outbreak of the aggression on the Gaza Strip, up to 1.7 million people, or over 75% of the population, have been displaced, some of them multiple times. Commissioner General Lazzarini reiterated the unprecedented level of suffering and need in the Gaza Strip, praising strong regional partners such as CLIF for heeding the call for support and solidarity with the people in Gaza and the unprecedented humanitarian crisis in the Gaza Strip. In Argentina, the storm Supercelda advances in the province of Buenos Aires, causing severe flooding and other damage. This Tuesday, the National Meteorological Service renewed a yellow alert, which was later upgraded to orange for strong storms, hail, and wind gusts for the city of Buenos Aires, El Conurbano, and 11 other provinces. The storm has already covered almost 300 kilometers, and its path is leaving serious damage due to the wind and large hail. One of the most affected localities is La Plata, capital of the Buenos Aires, where heavy flooding has been reported. Let's take a short break, but remember you can join us on TikTok at teleSUR English, where you will find news in different formats, news updates, and more. Other stories coming up, stay with us. Welcome back. In Venezuela, President Nicolás Maduro accepted his nomination as the sole candidate of the Great Simón Bolívar Patriotic Poll for the presidential elections scheduled for July 28th. The 10 parties grouped in the Great Patriotic Poll supported the decision taken by more than 4 million militants of the United Socialist Party of Venezuela, who on March 16th ratified the candidacy of the Venezuelan leader. Members of the Communist Party have affirmed that the Venezuelan head of state has resisted the aggressions of the enemies of the homeland and has managed to guarantee peace in Venezuela. President Nicolás Maduro reiterated that the Great Patriotic Poll represents the union of the Venezuelan left and of all those who feel love for their homeland. In this context, the youngest members of the United Socialist Party concentrated in the city of Caracas to ratify their support for the current president, Nicolás Maduro, in his running for the upcoming presidential elections. During various cultural activities, the Venezuelan youth expressed their support for the president at the Ezequiel Zamora Park in the capital city. In this sense, the secretary of the United Socialist Youth, Grecia Colmenares, stated that they will remain deployed on the streets until the upcoming presidential elections on July 28th.
We are here because we have come to support once again the candidature of our President Nicolás Maduro Moros, the President of the Venezuelan youth, the President of the Venezuelan people. There are thousands of reasons. There are too many reasons to express why the Venezuelan youth supports and must support President Nicolás Maduro Moros.
In Peru, leaders of indigenous communities in the Amazon region denounced on Tuesday the presence of mining groups responsible for contaminating the rivers with mercury for illegal gold mining. Members of the 1P community said that in their territory there are at least 35 dredges belonging to mining groups that are dedicated to sucking sediments from the bottom of the Morona and Santiago rivers, which provide the population with water and food. The indigenous people have presented various complaints and claims to the police and the army, but have had no response from the authorities. Tired of the lack of response from the state, the communities confiscated materials and detained at least 7 miners who were released after 4 days. The Brazilian Minister of Justice, Ricardo Lewandowski, confirmed Tuesday the rewarded collaboration of Rony Lessa, who shot to death the Afro-descendant consular Marielle Franco and her driver Anderson Gomez in 2018. According to the authorities, Lessa revealed the identity of the person who paid him for the murder of Marielle Franco and provided details about the crime. At the same time, they informed that 4 other people are detained for their participation in the assassination. With the return of Lula da Silva to the presidency of the country, the Franco's murder case began to be investigated by the federal police, which in 1 year signed collaboration agreements first with the driver of the car used in the action and now with Lessa. In Cuba, the third Patria International Symposium concluded this Wednesday. Communicators and leaders discussed the possibility of a new world order for information and communication. The event welcomed more than 100 guests from 30 countries and sought to consolidate digital political communication and sovereign development of technologies that promote communication progress in the nation. The Patria International Symposium also sought to broaden new horizons to the eve of a digitalized global order protected by an already limited mass communication culture but with other approaches to promote the development of ideas. Speaking to our multi-platform, the president of teleSUR, Patricia Villegas, assured that today's communication is not only a problem for journalists and communicators, and added that it is also necessary for the information to be pleasant, so that it can easily reach the whole audience.
Communication today is not only a problem of journalists, it is not only a problem of communicators, within mathematicians, engineers, and statisticians who are next to the newsrooms, as well as the journalists, and all of them are helping in the creation of that message so that it can really reach the audience. Certainly, one of the keys is to make an aesthetic communication, to make a beautiful, pleasant communication that can be heard. That is, that one can see it well, that we do not have to make a great effort to see our contents. It means that we must be able to compete technically and aesthetically with the dominant communication.
The president of teleSUR also made a statement on the Israeli genocide against the Palestinian people.
It is a great challenge because we have to tell that there is a genocide in Gaza and that genocide is portrayed as tragic as it is. In other words, there are mutilated bodies, there is a completely besieged population. Children are running after trucks to get a piece of bread. That is what is happening, but at the same time other things are happening in the world, and we must have the possibility to show this multiplicity of actions and increasingly show on our screens these other contents, these other concerns.
Patricia Villegas mentioned the importance of holding an event of this kind and what it means not only for Cuba but for the whole world.
At such a difficult time for the world and for Cuba, this event is a symbol of hope. That is how I see it, that is how I feel. That is, we are here and we resist. We all know that Cuba resists, but we must also show the Cuban people the courage of that resistance and the enormous example they are setting by maintaining hope in a different humanity. We come to embrace Cuba, to tell them that we know that things are hard, that things are complicated, but that they are not alone.
In the context of the Patria Symposium in Havana, the Minister for Communication and Information of Venezuela, Freddy Ñáñez, was interviewed by teleSUR. Let's listen to his statements.
Patria es una escuela. 100
This Patria Symposium is a school. 100 men and women who have reflected and who come from complete practices to build a liberating communication. They gather here to exchange knowledge, experiences, and above all, to articulate and build what should be a Latin American movement, a Sud-Sud movement where we can face the new challenges of communication, challenges that go through the need to be organized and to correctly interpret the time we are living in, the time of social networks, the information age, the time that also poses political challenges, ethical challenges, and cultural challenges.
Venezuela's Minister for Communication and Information, Freddy Ñáñez, referred to how the media have brought to light the war that Israel has perpetrated against the people of Palestine.
This is the first war, the first extermination, the first genocide that is transmitted in real time through social networks, and yet exposing the truth of a people massacred by a racist, extremist, and spurious regime, such as the Zionist regime. The world remains in inaction, instead of motivating indignation and the activation of international law. The Western world has remained inactive.
In this framework, the multimedia platform teleSUR received El Maestro Award, and teleSUR's President Patricia Villegas received the Felix El Musa Medal at the closure of the Patria International Symposium held in Havana from March 18th to 20th. Villegas received both prizes from the hands of high press officials of the Caribbean country for teleSUR outstanding professional work during over 15 years of service. Likewise, the Cuban Union of Journalists, UPEC, decided to grant the Felix El Musa Medal to Villegas for making important contributions to journalism with investigations and other works that have merited national and international recognition. Also for promoting relations of friendship and collaboration between UPEC and Cuban journalists with their colleagues and organizations in other countries.
I received this distinction with great pride. It moves me, and I receive it, of course, on behalf of all the workers of teleSUR, who in all parts of the world, but especially in Cuba and in Venezuela, have overcome all the difficulties. We have come to work on food. We have come to work despite the lack of electricity, despite the lack of fuel, because there isn't. But the signal has to go out and the stories have to be told, and we are always on the front line of the battle, and we will continue to be there.
We have a final short break coming up, but before we invite you to join our WhatsApp community for our English-speaking audience, you can scan the QR code on screen to join directly and share the link to reach more people. Constant news coverage of Latin America and the Caribbean, as well as the rest of the world. Stay connected and informed with teleSUR. Final short break. Don't go away. Welcome back to From the South. In Spain, a court on Wednesday authorized the release from jail of Brazilian football player Dani Alves in exchange for a bail of €1 million, while appeals against his rape conviction are being resolved. In its ruling, the Barcelona court granted Alves provisional release in exchange for the payment of €1 million bail and the handover of his Spanish and Brazilian passports. The Brazilian player is also required to remain in Spain and show up in court on a weekly basis. The court decision comes one day after Alves' lawyer claimed the 40-year-old footballer had already served a quarter of his sentence and deserved prison benefits. The court ruling drew a furious response from the victim's lawyer, who denounced the decision as justice for the rich. The Russian government warned that France will suffer a humiliating defeat if it decides to send troops to Ukraine. The vice president of the Russian Security Council, Dmitry Mendeleev, assured that eliminating French military personnel systematically would not be the most difficult task, but the most important one. The vice president of the Security Council assured that the number of coffins delivered to France will make it impossible to hide the massive death of professional soldiers. In this regard, Mendeleev warned that France will not be able to excuse itself by saying that the professional troops are working as mercenaries, and asserted that the French military, once they enter Ukraine, will become full-fledged fighters as part of an interventionist contingent. Indonesia's election commission informed on Wednesday that Prabowo Subianto has been elected president of the world's third biggest democracy, beating two rivals who have vowed to file legal complaints about the vote. The defense ministry already declared victory last month after unofficial counts showed him winning a majority. The candidate was officially confirmed as winner Wednesday after receiving more than 96 million votes, which is 58.6% of the total and enough to secure a first-round majority. Speaking outside his house in the capital Jakarta, Prabowo thanked Indonesians and his party for helping him rise to the country's highest office.
We have been elected by the Indonesian people. The mandate from the Indonesian people is in our hands, but we will be president and vice president, as well as government for all Indonesians. For those who didn't vote for us, give us a chance. We will prove that we will become president, vice president, and government who will work as hard as we can for all the Indonesian people.
On Wednesday, China welcomed intellectuals from all over the world during the Third International Forum on Democracy. In this sense, the capital of China, Beijing, received more than 200 guests from different countries, regions, and international organizations. During the debates, the participants agreed that democracy is a sign of the progress of human civilization. The opening ceremonies were presided over by members of the Political Bureau of the Central Committee of the Communist Party of China. Within the framework of this working meeting, delegations from Latin America and the Caribbean highlighted the importance of this event for the creation of a multipolar world. We have come to the end of this news brief, but you can find these and many other stories on our website at telesurenglish.net and join us on social media, Facebook, X, Instagram, Telegram and TikTok. For Telesur English, I'm Alejandra Garcia. Thank you for watching.